We've got the frontalis muscle. So the frontalis muscle, its origin is on the top of the frontal bone and inserts onto the supraorbital margin, basically your eyebrows. Its job is to elevate the eyebrows. We then have the orbicularis oculi and the orbicularis oris. I'm not going to ask you the origin insertion. It basically inserts upon itself, but so the action of the orbicularis oculi is to close your eyes, and the orbicularis oris is to purse the lips. We've got the masseter. Its origin is on the zygomatic arch of the temporal bone, and inserts into the ramus of the mandible. Its job is to elevate the mandible, so you want to bite down on something. So for example, bulldogs have extremely strong masseter muscles, right? So they really lock on real well, okay? Here on the side of the neck, we've got the sternocleidomastoid. Its origin is on the clavicle, and it inserts into the mastoid process of the skull. Its job is so contraction of one causes rotation of the skull, contraction of both causes flexion of the skull. We'll stay with the front of the body. So for example, we got here the major flexor, one of the two major flexors of the humerus. We've got the pectoralis major. Its origins are the sternum and clavicle, and it inserts basically distal to the greater tubercle of the humerus. Its job is to flex, adduct, and internally rotate the humerus. And then we've got the deltoid muscle. Its origins are along the clavicle, acromion process, and spine of the scapula, and inserts into the deltoid tuberosity of the humerus, about a third of the way down. It flexes, abducts, and extends the humerus. Okay. On the back, we've got the trapezius. Its origins are on basically T1 through T12, and it inserts onto the upper back and onto the occipital bones of the skull. It extends the shoulders and elevates the scapula. So like any type of shrugging action is going to really get the trapezius. We then have the major back muscle of the lower back, which is the latissimus dorsi. Its origins are on the sacrum and iliac crest of the pelvis, and it basically inserts right next to the pectoralis major on the humerus. It extends. Basically, it is the exact opposite action of the pectoralis major. It extends, adducts, and rotates the arm. Okay, so it does the exact opposite options. Okay. On the arm, okay, we've got the major flexor of the elbow joint, which is the biceps brachii. Origin is on the supraglenoid tubercle, and then the acromion process of the scapula, and it inserts onto the radial tuberosity of the radius. Its job is to supinate the forearm, flex the elbow, and is also a weak flexor of the shoulder joint. We then have the brachialis. So the brachialis, its origin is on the upper humerus, and inserts basically onto the condyle of the radius. Its job is to flex a semi-pronated, right? So if you're doing hammer curls or like dancing like a robot, right, that would be the brachialis. Okay, and then we have the brachioradialis, which basically starts on the lower humerus, and also inserts basically midway up on the radius. So its job is to flex a pronated, right? So if you want to walk like an Egyptian, that would be your brachioradialis. Major extensor of the elbow is the triceps brachii. It's got three heads. Lower head, the short head, is on the olecranon process of the ulna, and it attaches onto the lower humerus. The medium head also starts on the olecranon process, attaches on the upper, and then the upper head is also there and also attaches way up at the top. Basically, that one attaches onto the spine of the scapula. So it extends the elbow and is a weak extensor of the shoulder joint.
Can you explain supination and pronation?
Yeah, so supination is palms up like you're holding a bowl of soup.
Palms up.
Pronation is hands down. Okay, palm up, supination. Palm down is pronation. Okay, supination, pronation. Okay. Don't worry about the muscles of the arm. I won't ask you about those, but I can go over them real quick. I won't go over the origin insertions though. So thumb sign, so thumb and forefinger together. That's your flexor carpi radialis. Middle two fingers together. That's your flexor flexor digitorum. And then you have your flexor carpi ulnaris. So difference between carpi and digitorum is, so the carpis, right, so it flexes the wrist versus the flexor digitorum, right? So I don't need to flex my wrist to do my flexor digitorum. Now, we talked about some of you guys have the palmaris longus, so, right, so it does both. Right? So if you have that tendon sticking up, one of you had a tendon, right, so if you had that tendon sticking up, you have the palmaris longus, okay? So flexor carpi radialis, flexor digitorum, flexor carpi ulnaris. On the other side, so flexor or extensor carpi ulnaris, flexor carpi radialis, flexor carpi ulnaris, flexor or extendor digitorum. So extendor carpi radialis, extendor carpi ulnaris, extendor digitorum. Okay, so those are the muscles of the forearm. The only one we didn't really talk about is the pollicis and abducens. That one does opposition. That's what gives us opposable thumbs. Okay.
Are you going to ask us about the muscles of the hands and feet?
No. Yeah. All right. Rectus abdominis origin is on the pubis, pubic tubercle of the pubis. Inserts into the xiphoid process of the sternum. Its job is to compress the abdomen and flex the trunk. So we talked about best way to exercise it is do crunches. We then have the external obliques. Origin is on the ribs and inserts into the iliac crest. The internal starts on origin is the iliac crest and inserts into the ribs. Right? So they extend and into each other. Flexion of one does what? Bends the spine. Flexion of both flexes and bends strength. As we talked about, right? So they fire contralaterally, right? So if I contract my right external, I fire my left internal. If I fire my left external, I fire my right internal to help stabilize the trunk. Okay? Underneath all of those is the transverse abdominis. Its job is to brace the trunk, brace the spine. Right. So we talked about you want to activate that one, suck in your stomach. Right. So that's a good one. Okay. Quadricep muscles. We got the 4 quadricep muscles. All 4 of them. The insertion is the tibial tuberosity of the tibia. Medialis, vastus medialis, lateralis, and intermedius. The origin is on the upper humerus and inserts into the tibial tuberosity via the quadricep tendon. The rectus femoris, its origin is the anterior superior iliac spine of the hip, or of the ilium, and inserts via the tendon. So medialis, intermedius, and lateralis just simply extend the knee. The rectus femoris is both a hip flexor and a knee extensor. So we talked about if you're doing a seated leg extension, right, you're not really utilizing your rectus femoris. So you need to do some type of squatting motion in order to get all 4 muscles. Gluteus, right? We didn't talk about the gluteus medius maximus, don't worry about it, but So gluteus maximus or gens are on the iliac crest and sacrum, inserts into the gluteal tuberosity of the gluteus. Its actions are extension, abduction, and external rotation of the femur. So, like, think about like skating on ice, right? You got to push your leg back and out, right? That's how you do it. So, take a look at any ice skater, speed skater, figure skater, or whatever, hockey player. They all have very, very well developed gluteal muscles. Then we got the 3 hamstring muscles. We've got the biceps femoris. Origin is on the posterior superior iliac spine, inserts into the tibial tuberosity, or the medial and lateral condyles of the tibia. The semimembranosus and semitendinosus do the same thing, basically. So we go biceps femoris, semimembranosus, semitendinosus. Semitendinosus is mostly fascia, which is why we call it the semitendinosus, because it's semi-tendon. Okay? All 3 of them start on the pelvis, on the hip, on the posterior superior iliac spine, and insert into the medial and lateral condyles of the tibia. So they're both a hip extensor and a knee flexor, so they do both. Okay? And then we've got the gastrocnemius. Origin is on the medial and lateral condyles of the femur, and inserts into the calcaneal tuberosity via the gastroc tendon, otherwise known as the Achilles tendon. So the gastrocnemius is both a knee flexor and a plantar flexor. So it both puts you on your tippy toes and helps bend the knee. And then underneath that, we've got the soleus, which origin is on the upper tibia and inserts into the calcaneal tuberosity. So the plantar flexor is the main, or the soleus is the main plantar flexor of a bent knee, because it doesn't do knee flexion. And then we've got on the front of the foot, we've got the tibialis anterior. Origin is on the proximal end of the tibia, and inserts into the first phalange of the first proximal phalange. So it inserts in your big toe. So it's your primary dorsiflexor. Helpful? Cool. That's it, guys?